Things are about to get very, very interesting in Venezuela. In today's video, I'm going to reveal something for you guys that's going to blow your mind. You see, there is no opposition to socialism in Venezuela. There's a group down there that calls themselves the opposition, but they're largely fractured, and all of them are socialists, just of a different stripe. In other videos, I have talked about how much socialism goes on hidden in the United States every day. But recently, there have been reports now that the opposition, the people against Nicolas Maduro, have called for the end to this charade with a random guy named Juan. And that's right here. Venezuela's Capriles calls on opposition to shut interim government report. Caracas, two-time Venezuelan opposition presidential candidate Enrique Capriles called for an end to an interim government created in 2019 by Congress chief random guy named Juan, with U.S. backing, according to an interview published by the BBC on Wednesday. That's this guy right here. We've talked about him before. You see, they don't like this guy in Washington, D.C. The reason they don't like this guy, and the reason they stood up a random guy named Juan, is this. Enrique Capriles, actually Enrique Radonsky, but we'll just call him Enrique Capriles for now, ran in 2013 against Nicolas Maduro after Hugo Chavez passed away. And it was a close race. It was an honest race. It was a fair race. And Nicolas Maduro won. He won by a razor-thin margin, 50.66% to 49.07%. In total votes, 7.505 million to 7.27 million. This is why they don't like him. Because it showed something. It showed that in Venezuela there were, in fact, free and fair elections going on. Nobody in 2013 challenged this election result. Nobody. Not our government, not any other government. That's why, since that time, every opposition party has backed out or refused to run against Nicolas Maduro, because that gives them the ability to say, oh, it's all rigged anyway. Well, I'm going to show you even more proof that it isn't rigged. You ready for this? This is going to blow your mind. All carrot, no stick. Biden seeks negotiations with Venezuela's Maduro and his allies. Now, I'm sure a lot of people have already have their mind made up about this because of what happened here. But there's something that they mention in this article that should make you scratch your head. Opposition's agenda. In theory, random guy named Juan will lose his seat as head of the Venezuelan National Assembly on January 5. Biden takes office in Washington just 2 weeks later. Since late November, the opposition leader's team has been trying to arrange a call with Biden without success so far, 3 people familiar with the efforts said. But wait a minute. How is it that the opposition had any control of any form of government in Venezuela at all? If it's just as simple as putting a thumb drive in a voting machine, or in this case, like they allege that somehow Nicolas Maduro is some kind of a dictator, why wouldn't he have just had him removed and taken control a long time ago? Why did there have to be elections? Why? Virtually all of the world is sanctioning the country anyway, right? Virtually everybody calls him a dictator anyway, right? What would he have to lose? People say, oh, he's got the backing of Russia, China, Iran. Okay, like I said, what would he have to lose by just have gotten rid of the guy a long time ago? Why would there be a need for a pretense? Why would there be a need for a pretense? You see, this goes all the way back to, when was it, 2017 or 18 when I started talking about this? This was the original guy that they stood up. This was the original random guy named Juan. This is Juan Requesens. You see, this is when the U.S. was putting out all of the starving Venezuelan memes. This was their leader. This was the opposition leader at that time, Juan Requesens. 6'2", 6'1", 400 pounds. And I had mentioned earlier in the video that there are no anti-socialists in Venezuela, no matter who you are. I'm going to show you that now with the wikis. This is Enrique Capriles. And I'll give you all these links and you can look this up for yourself. Now, who does he represent? Okay, well, for a while it was Democratic Unity Roundtable. For another part of his history, it was a group called COPEI, C-O-P-E-I. And now it's Justice First. Well, let's look up COPEI. See, this is anti-Maduro, anti-Chavez party. This is the opposition, right? These were the parties that were in charge prior to Chavez. COPEI, also referred to as the Social Christian Party or Green Party, is a Christian democratic party in Venezuela. Comité de Organización Política Electoral Independiente. Sorry about the accent there. This party was influential during the 20th century as a signatory of the Punta Fio Pact. Okay, and you can go back and look this up. This was just another version of socialism. Now, they're all part of this thing called the Democratic Unity Roundtable. Okay, and what are their ideologies? Christian democracy, social liberalism, progressivism, and to some extent economic liberalism, but with caveats. Another socialist organization. This was the other one that was in charge. Acción Democrática. Venezuelan, social democratic, and center-left political party. Now, these aren't pro-Chavez. These aren't pro-Maduro parties. These are the opposition. These are the opposition parties. There are no capitalists in Venezuela of any stripe. Justice First. This is the newest incarnation for this Enrique Capriles Radonsky. Civic humanism, progressivism, political positions center to center left. I'll give you every one of these links. You can look this up. You can confirm this for yourself of who these people are. This election back in 2013 was key. It was just two different forms of socialism. And the Enrique Capriles Radonsky version lost. As you can see, here's how the map played out. Even the region that has Caracas voted for him. But the outlying regions, the more rural regions, voted for Nicolas Maduro. This part here close to Colombia voted for Radonsky. It was and they hate him for this. They absolutely loathe Radonsky for doing this because it gave validation. Because there was no fraud going on. And the reason there was no fraud going on is because the entire country, all of them, want some version of socialism. Period. That is fact. They were socialist when they were our ally. They were socialist when my great-grandparents were kids. They have been a socialist country for time in memoriam. They fly F-16s. During my entire time in the military, they were our ally, more so than Colombia was in a great many ways. Now, this has nothing to do with DC progressive corporatist liberalism. Nothing to do with it. When people say socialism always fails, I agree with you. When administered the way DC liberals administer it, absolutely fails every time. Why? Because it requires corporatism. It requires you to tax and demonize the rich. You have corporatism. Corporatism controls everything, as we're seeing now in social media. They make a ton of money. You have a bunch of hyper-wealthy billionaires. And then they just take turns changing the tax code depending on who's in charge. and we take it on the chin. Venezuela, they don't finance their country with income taxes. Venezuela does not finance its country by taxing its people. It finances its country through the sale of natural resources on the open market on behalf of all of the people of Venezuela. See, that's what true social democracy is. Imagine if every gold mine, every oil well, every copper mine, all of the fisheries around all of the coasts of this country, everything that we do that pertains to all of us, was used instead of taxing people. Imagine that incredible thought. Imagine that for just 1 second. Alaska does it. Works great for them. But you see, big oil won't allow you to even think that. That's why they have to buy the corporate media to make you believe something about the word, quote unquote, socialism that isn't true. They're taking one term and broad brushing everyone with it, and that's why there has been this nonstop, constant push on behalf of the last 4 administrations to put this country back under its thumb, Venezuela. They want the oil. They don't want it to benefit the Venezuelan people. They want the Venezuelan people to go back to 80% poverty like they had when big oil was in charge. That's what they want. They want this tiny little sliver, this upper crust, to bribe. And then they'll roll them out, of course, on the media to show you as, see how well the Venezuelan people are doing, and they won't show you the rest of the country. That's what they want. That's what big oil wants. And there was one guy, too, actually, a soldier and a bus driver, Chavez and Maduro, a soldier and a bus driver that stood up and made a difference. And they hate ideas like that people like soldiers and bus drivers can have the ability to speak on behalf of their people. This is how they've brainwashed you into what's going on in Venezuela. And just go down and look in the comments. You'll see the brainwashing. I can show you proof after proof after proof after proof of what's really happened in Venezuela, why it's happened, who's responsible. It's all out there to be found. But there will still be people down in the comments parroting their masters in the media. Parroting what they're told on talk radio. Parroting what they're told by the Trump crowd about evil, terrible, horrible socialism, even though socialism in every possible form exists here in this country. Taxes, regulations, inspections, licenses, subsidies, approvals, all of these different things that government controls for business. Try to start a business in this country and tell me that you don't have to bow the knee multiple times to government to make it happen. And then even after you get going, how many more times do you have to bow the knee to the government to continue to operate? Ask any business across America now whether they think they're living in a socialist country or not. A government-controlled company. Listen to me. Looks like I'm slipping. A Freudian slip there. Government-controlled country or not. And I'll leave it there. Like, share, subscribe.